So today we're talking about, it's the lecture is called Updating Data or something like that. But the update statement, there's not much to it, right? So we're going to look at a couple of things. You have a homework assignment coming up. Let's go look in the modules here. That is called Inserting LXMR Records. Now, this is due it's due in a couple weeks, right? I think it's a week from this Sunday, so about a week and a half. But you'd think, well, that's plenty of time. Well, inevitably, mistakes will happen when you do this assignment. You're going to be doing insert statements for a whole bunch of records. So the intent of today is to show you some tricks on how to reverse your mistakes and how to handle them, okay? Because they'll happen. They happen to everybody. They happen to me when I do it. They happen to everybody. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the update command, the delete command. We'll be using select, which we already know about. And we're going to be, of course, refreshing our knowledge about insert. And we'll even have to look at altering tables potentially, okay? I've gone through, I think I've graded everybody's assignment for the create the database tables. And I didn't notice any errors as far as what data types you used. But that doesn't mean there aren't any, right? I didn't notice any, but there may be. So one of the common mistakes that you run into is your table will have one data type and you try to insert into it a different data type, right? So for example, I'm going to contrive some fake scenarios here. Use the tile database and let's do show tables. And actually I'm going to copy the order line data because I'm going to delete it. Now you won't be creating the order line table. You're going to be creating 5 tables for the LXMR database, and you have all the information you should need for that with the homework assignment. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, I'm going to delete every record in the order line table so I can modify things. How do I delete every record in the order line table?
Drop the table.
That would drop the table, which would delete all the records, but would also
just want to clear it.
just want to empty it out, yeah. Delete from order line. And goodbye all order line records. Okay, so select star from order line and nothing there. Okay, now I'm going to purposely break the structure of this table. Okay. And I'm going to change the quoted price to something else. Let's change it to a char. So how do I do that? By the way, don't do this to your databases, right? Alter. First we alter the table called order line. Then we modify, I heard somebody say modify, the column that's called quoted price. Right? And I'm going to change it to a char too. Now, let's just say that this is a scenario where you created the order line table and you accidentally gave it the data type of char 2 rather than decimal, right? That's the scenario I'm trying to contrive here, okay? All right, that was weird. It took that long to make that. Did you see that delay? That's strange. So now what I want to do is try to insert one of these pieces of data here into the order line table. So how do I insert it? What's the first thing I type? Insert into order line, all right? And then what? Values, right? On the insert does not use the where clause. So before values, I'm going to declare the fields, right? Order num, item num ordered, and quoted price. Quoted price. Okay, then we do the values. I heard somebody mention that. Right, and the values I'm going to do is just 5. I'm doing the very bottom record there, 51625. Don't forget your parentheses. And then MTO3, that's a 03. And then the number ordered is 8. And then the last one, 45.79. This will not work, right? I did all that just to make this one error happen. Why will this not work?
Doesn't recognize the value.
Which one?
The 45. 4579.
What's wrong with that?
It's a decimal in
No, character.
Okay. That's actually okay, believe it or not. I can put, because a char can hold anything.
But you don't.
Because, yes,
Yeah,
it's
you
not
want
big
to-
enough to hold it, right? So if the number were just simply something like 0.5, that would work fine, because it's 2 characters, right? But because it's 45.79, that's 5 characters, and this is a char 2, if we describe the table again, it's a char 2. Now, again, I purposely contrived this scenario here, but this is a very common type of mistake. Happens all the time, right? It's very common. Another scenario might be that the order num table, you made the order num 4 characters, but in the order line table, you made it 5 characters or something like that, and you can get weird issues there, okay? So if we run it, I want you to see what this error will be so you know how to deal with it. Oh, of course. Why did that work? Say again?
It truncates that.
Yeah, that's unusual. Oh, you know what? This is because Maria database is different. Oh, that's interesting. That's a new thing for me. Let me just look here. This is worse, actually. This is a bigger problem than you might realize.
You make a mistake.
Yeah, this is way worse. So let me just look. Yeah, bummer. Okay, so I'm glad that we found that. The previous version of MySQL that I've been using in all past semesters for the past few years, it would not allow it. You'd get an error. It would not allow that data to go in there. Well, this is worse because it allows that data to go in there and it'll be wrong.
But is that why it gave you a warning?
It did, yeah, one warning. It didn't tell me what the warning is, but it did give me a warning, yeah. And there is a command for seeing what those warnings are. And I don't remember what it is. Maybe we can look it up in a minute. But maybe that would have helped us to see what that was. Yeah, so new direction here. My intent was to show you what the error is so you know how to handle it. So here's my new advice for you. Watch for warnings, right? When you get a warning there, and that warning probably said warning data truncated. That's probably what the warning said. So it doesn't matter what it said. The fact that there's a warning, immediately the next thing you need to do is look in your table and say, all right, what happened? Okay? So that's a little trickier. It's not as obvious as when before when it wouldn't even allow it. Very interesting. Okay, I'm glad we found that out. All right, so I'm going to fix it the way it's supposed to be. So alter table, order line, modify column quoted price, and what was it? A decimal 6.2? Yeah. Yeah, 6.2. Yep. All right. So, and I'm going to delete that record. Those records, whatever's in there. Oh. I do that all the time. Don't put the star there. There we go. All right, let's run this again and get the correct data here. And that time, one row affected, no warning, right? And if we look at the data, there we go. All right. So the lesson there, a lesson I just also learned myself, is that Maria database is a little bit more flexible, which can be good and can be bad, right? So again, because of this weird little feature that Maria database, I think they were trying to be helpful. We need to be careful when you do your Alexamara data inserts or your Henry books or your Premier. When that's a total of something like 16 tables and a whole bunch of data, hundreds of insert statements. One wrong move and you don't realize it, and you may have just inserted and truncated every single value on a particular field. So you got to be very careful, okay? All right, what questions do we have about that? We good? Okay, now, the reason I'm showing you this is, so how do you handle the mistakes? Well, I just showed you the mistake where I discovered it truncated. How did I handle that? I inserted it again. What did I have to do first?
Deleted the records and changed.
Delete the record, and then I modified the table, right? So these are your friend right here. Delete, alter, right? These above here are all record things, and this is structure thing, right? So the first thing is you got to delete the bad records, right? And then you got to alter the table to make sure it's got the correct structure, and then you got to reinsert, okay? So when you do these assignments where you're inserting all these records, you're gonna write a whole bunch of insert statements that look kind of like this, except it's gonna be for the other databases, right? But it's gonna be for Alexamara and so forth, right? And it's gonna look just like this, but you're gonna have hundreds of them, right? So my suggestion to you is save this file, right? Save it, and then if you screw it up, you can just drop the whole database and redo it, right? Or you can drop the whole table or delete all the records or whatever and redo it, okay? Oops, let's close that. All right, how do we feel about that? Good? All right. Now, sometimes your error, oh yeah, go
You
ahead.
don't have to keep all this stuff at the beginning, you can just have order number, item number, number order recorded price, and then just have values comment after each other multiple times, right?
Yes, there's multiple ways you could do that. So you could do,
Isn't that just I mean,
yep, you can do this,
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna copy the
And
same
then-
values, but
and then instead of a semicolon, just,
yeah, you can do that. Put a comma between each of those, which I apparently missed a couple commas there. Comma, yeah, that will work right there. Now, obviously I have to change the values or else I'm gonna
Inside.
get primary key errors, yeah. But that works just fine. Also, let's back up, you can also do this syntax here, where you don't even bother with this. You don't need that because you're using all of the fields. When you're using all the fields, you can just do it this way.
it just automatically knows you're gonna fill in.
Yeah, and as long as you got these in the right order, you're good. You can also just duplicate the lines here. So let me show you an approach how I would deal with this, okay? If I were me, and I usually am, this is how I would do it. I would write this first line, then I would leave a space, and I'd put a comma, and then I would put two quotes, then I would put a comma, and that's it. Then, what would I do?
Copy that.
Copy and paste, right? Or look at, or just type the data. I would duplicate the line a bunch of times and then type in the data, right? So here's a hot little trick if you're using Notepad++, okay? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 records, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Check this out. In Notepad++, you can use column edit mode. So I'm going to click right here by the 9, use my arrow keys and the whole Shift-Alt key at the same time, and just copy a little section right there. And I could come right down here using Shift-Alt, push my down arrow until I get to the bottom, paste, right? I could do that for every one of these. I think I left off a field. I need to put one more comma in there, yeah. But you get the idea, right? That can save you a lot of time, okay? Now be careful, because let's say that the data here was something like there was a space there, right? And then when you get to the customer table, and I think in the Premier database or the owner table in Alexamara, you're going to see the customer names are all the same length. So that little copy and paste trick can get messy, right? But these are shortcuts I use all the time in the real world, okay? Anyway, so the real point though, save the file. Here's a few shortcut tricks you can use to make that work. So hopefully that'll help you get this assignment done. Now, the other thing is, what if you put in, so I'm going to reset my database here. So I just reset my database. Now I'm going to go into the Solmaris database. Actually, I'm going to do, Solmaris, is that the trip company or is,
That's the concept.
oh, let's use Colonial then. All right, so let's look at the guide table. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's say, now you guys don't have to create this table, but let's say you were creating this table, right? And you accidentally had your insert statement backwards and you put the city in the address field and the address in the city field or something like that, right? And you do a select and you look at it and you realize, oh crap, I did those two backwards, right? How do we fix it?
You can alter the column names and just switch the.
Oh,
You know,
nice, change the column names. Smart idea. That would actually work. Yes, very good. You could do that, yeah. Now, hopefully it didn't get truncated because the fields were big enough to hold everything. Like in other words, if you got state and postal code mixed up, then all your postal codes might have got truncated. But yeah, that's a good approach. You could alter the table. What else could you do?
I guess you could just drop all of it and re-add it.
Yeah, delete all the records and redo it, right? Which again goes back to saving that file. Save that file. I've had that happen on several occasions where, for whatever reason, the student felt they didn't need to save the file, and their data was completely wrong. And I'm like, well, let's go look at the file, and we'll find the tweaks. And like, what file? I'm like, you didn't save the file? No. Why? Save the file, at least until after I grade it, right? You know what I mean? So you have any, in case there's any mess ups, right? Okay, next up. What if you just goofed on one person? Like you wrote, instead of Massachusetts, you wrote California or something. Instead of Connecticut, you wrote New Hampshire. Minor thing, but how would you fix that?
You can delete the one record, redo the one record.
You
alter it.
could delete that. You could delete that one record, yep, and then redo it. Just because hopefully you'll copy paste it from the table. What else, or the file? What else could you do? You started to say the other one too.
Modify the record.
Just update the record, right? So I'm going to update. What table am I in here? The guide table. Update guide. And how do I do an update? What's the next keyword we need? No. What am I changing? I have to deal with whatever it is I'm going to change. There will be a where clause. I heard you say where. There will be one in a minute.
The column.
Close. What about the column name? Set. I was just about to say, I'm going to sit here until somebody says it. I'm going to set here until somebody says it. Right. All right, set what? Yeah, which field? In this case, it's state equal to New Hampshire, right? Instead of Connecticut. We're going to change this last record here. I used to live by Danbury, by the way, in Connecticut. Where what? Where state equals Connecticut?
Or where user ID.
With state is equal to what's wrong?
So I could do where state equals Connecticut?
Well, that would change all of them, right?
Yes, very good. That would change everybody in the database who lives in Connecticut. Suddenly they now live in New Hampshire, right? That's no good. All right, good.
For the primary.
The
keys.
primary key, yeah, which is right here, UG01, okay? Where, what's that key called? It's called guide num. Where guide num is equal to UG01, right there. And now, when I do a select, New Hampshire, right? And we didn't change everybody. So if you goof on one record or one little field on one record, you can just do an update statement, okay? How do we feel about that? Good? Okay. So, next thing, update statement, we've looked at that. It's pretty easy. Delete statement, we looked at it. Select and insert. The first three here, typically, well, they don't need to, but you're going to have a where clause, right? What happens if you don't have a where clause? You change everything, right? If I say update, set something equal to something, then, and I don't have a where clause, I just updated the entire database, right? So this statement here, right there, if I didn't have that where clause, now everybody lives in New Hampshire, right? That's no good, okay? See what I do to my database for you guys? I corrupt my data just for you. All right, delete, same thing. If I do delete from guide without a where clause, I delete all of the records. Look what I did for you guys. Deleted all of my records, okay? They're all gone. If I do a select without a where clause, that's not as dangerous, right? It's just going to select every record. No big deal, except there's no records in this one, so we'll do select star from, I think reservation is a thing, right? No where clause, it just returns all the records, which, yeah, no big deal. Maybe I only need these specific 5 records, but I got them all. But this can be a problem too, right? If you have a database with 1 million records in it, that's not unheard of, especially if you end up on an Oracle database or a SQL Server database. Those things are meant to have humongous sets of data, and it's very easy to have a table with millions and millions of records in it. So the where clause is your friend. That's why last week we talked about the great and powerful clause, the where clause. Insert, however, has no where clause. Why?
It's making a new record.
Yeah, it's a brand new record. There's no condition under which you decide not to insert the record. You don't say insert the record where what? Where no matter what. I want it inserted, right? I'm making a new record. So there is no where clause there, okay? But the other three have a where clause. Delete, update, and select, delete, update, and insert. For the most part, we're done talking about those for the rest of the semester. There's a couple things we're gonna do later with them, just a couple brief things, but pretty much the rest of the semester is gonna be all about the select. And it's gonna be about getting into doing joins and this kind of stuff moving forward. So for the most part, bullet point number 1, 2, and 4 up there, we're kind of done for the rest of the semester. I'm expecting you to kind of know those, and so that's why I'm here to help answer questions, all right? So any questions before I turn off the recorder?